Coming up on District Wire News, we remember the life of President George H.W. Bush. The 41st president's body is arriving in Washington in just a few moments.
Also, a neighborhood resolution to name a road in honor of slain Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi is put on hold. That and more coming up on District Wire News. Welcome to District Wire News. I'm Hope Han.
And I'm Kelly Connor. Thanks for joining us. President George H.W. Bush's casket arrived in Washington minutes ago. The 41st president passed away Friday. He was 94. He will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol from this evening until Wednesday morning, when his funeral will take place at the Washington National Cathedral. His body will return home to Houston on Thursday for burial. The president left a footprint on the nation, putting an end to the Cold War and supporting rights for Americans with disabilities. District Wire's Savannah McCann has more on Bush's legacy.
Before he became the 41st president, George Herbert Walker Bush served in the Navy during World War II following the attack on Pearl Harbor. After being promoted to lieutenant, Bush's aircraft was hit by flak during an attack and had to be rescued by a submarine. He was then honorably discharged. During his time in the Navy, Bush married his high school sweetheart, Barbara. The two had 6 children: George W., Robin, Jeb, Neil, Marvin, and Doro. Bush enrolled at Yale University, where he earned a degree in economics in just 2.5 years. After graduation, Bush moved his family to Texas, where he began his career in politics in 1963. In 1966, Bush was elected to the House of Representatives, where he was the first Republican to represent Houston. Richard Nixon convinced Bush to relinquish his House seat in order to run for the Senate. However, Bush lost the election to the Democratic nominee. In 1980, Bush decided to run for president, where he lost the nomination. In a last-minute decision, Reagan selected Bush as his vice presidential nominee. He served 2 terms as vice president under Reagan from 1981 to 1989. As early as 1985, Bush was planning for a presidential run. Bush defeated Dukakis by an electoral college vote of 426 to 111. This made him the first vice president since 1836 to be elected president. Bush's presidential legacy is remembered for his handle on foreign affairs. Bush's handling of the invasion in Kuwait is viewed as one of his largest successes. Despite his global success, economic problems at home were to blame when he lost the re-election bid in 1992. 8 years later, Bush's son went on to serve 2 terms as President of the United States. For District Wire News, I'm Savannah McCann.
Cleanup efforts continue in Anchorage, Alaska, following a 7.0 earthquake on Friday morning. The declaration of civil emergency, as stated by Mayor Ethan Berkowitz, has been extended to Tuesday at 10 p.m. local time. Ships are attempting to bring in some supplies to restock grocery stores and provide for residents. Berkowitz says he's impressed with the cooperation of the residents.
People have been incredibly helpful, not just in terms of what they're doing for first responders and emergency crews working with utilities, but also looking after their families and their neighbors. And that's made a huge difference in our ability to respond to this potentially much more significant disaster.
Schools in the area will reopen on December 10th. Officials say that closing schools will limit road congestion. Glen Highway is the most damaged road as a result of the earthquake. The highway links Anchorage to suburban communities in the north. Seismologists say it's the most powerful earthquake to hit Anchorage since 1964.
World-renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson is being accused of sexual misconduct by 3 women. deGrasse Tyson denies the allegations and says he welcomes any investigation by Fox and National Geographic. One accuser, a physics and astronomy professor at Bucknell University, said the alleged incident occurred when she asked Tyson for a photo at American Astronomical Society after-party.
4 high school football players are accused of raping 4 of their fellow teammates. A grand jury has indicted the players for allegedly raping students with broomsticks during a locker room hazing incident. The suspects told victims it was a tradition that had started generations ago. The teens were released on bond after being charged with 1 count of first-degree rape, 3 counts of attempted rape, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit rape. School administrators have called the incident upsetting and unacceptable.
D.C. Department of Transportation is proposing a plan to add 2 additional bridges next to a bridge that is more than 100 years old. Our own Nasli Togirl has the story.
The District Department of Transportation is expanding train service with a plan to double the number of train tracks between DC and Arlington, Virginia over the Potomac River. The plan aims to retain and repair the tracks of the Long Bridge, which was built in 1904. It would also add 2 additional tracks between the existing bridge and the Metro's Yellow Line Bridge. Contracting will begin once federal approvals are made, which are expected in early 2020, and once construction starts, it is projected to take up to 5 years for the bridge to be fully functional. The bridge will open up a bottleneck for rail traffic between Richmond and Union Station. The plan could potentially double the number of trains running each weekday by 2040. The preferred designs were revealed on Thursday to replace the idea of completely rebuilding the Long Bridge, which would take 3 more years and cost an additional $500 million. The plan also responds to a new walkway and bike path on a separate bridge for pedestrians. Currently, the only way pedestrians can cross the bridge in the area is through the small sidewalk on the 14th Street Bridge. This proposed path would also make up for any lost part of Arlington Park that construction may take up. Back to you, Kelly.
Thanks, Naz. A New Mexico resident went to apply for a marriage license in D.C. and was denied because a clerk thought he was foreign. The clerk's supervisor believed New Mexico was a foreign country. Gavin Clarkson says the clerk asked him for additional forms of identification, doubting his American citizenship. A spokeswoman for the D.C. courts acknowledged the error, and Clarkson was finally issued a marriage license.
DC neighbors want to name the road outside of the Saudi embassy in honor of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Khashoggi was killed in October. District Wire's Gloria Martinez has more on what the next steps are to make the resolution a reality.
A local advisory neighborhood commission, or ANC, is moving towards renaming the street directly outside of the Embassy of Saudi Arabia to Jamal Khashoggi Way. Although ANC 2A moved the proposal forward, the DC City Council paused movement, citing that streets cannot be named after people who have been dead for less than 2 years.
I think it's really unfair. They should at least hear it. I don't see why they couldn't just hear it, and it's kind of stupid.
DC residents got to express their disdain for the lack of movement.
I think it's a little bit disrespectful. I think there's no reason not to. Obviously, this guy was credible and deserves to have his name on the street, if anything.
Khashoggi was murdered in the Saudi Arabian consulate in Istanbul in October. The CIA is said to have found a connection between Khashoggi's death and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. For District Wire News, I'm Gloria Martinez.
How small is your studio? A new report says DC apartments are some of the smallest in the country.
Holiday cheer is spreading around the district. We'll tell you where to get your Christmas trees and celebrate festivals of lights when we come back.